All right, welcome. We are back to another action-packed, yet erotic episode of SOV Vigilantes
Not mutually exclusive.
with your hosts, Clint Kelly, Andrew Baltus, and myself, Chris Seaver. And we are joined today with our first guest of the show, Mr. Ross Snyder of Saturn's core. Hello, Ross.
Yeah.
Pleasure. Thanks for having me.
My goodness.
By far the best guest we've ever had.
Hands down.
Awesome.
That's right. Look at all those lovely. Oh, look at that. Look at the nostalgia. Look at all that behind him. My God.
It's just oozes with power.
No
You know how-
stereolia.
Many envious people will have in the comments. At least 1 to 5s of people will be so envious of that VHS collection back there.
Well, this
They
is
might
the
even be
SOV
on the-
wall, so it's only fitting, right?
Oh shit! All right. Damn. All right. So yeah, Ross. So Ross and I have a history. We'll go through it just real quick. Ross at one point was in low budget pictures. He first did a song for our film Destruction Kings, which is pretty rad, and it's still on my rotation. It's still in my. I still do listen to it.
I think in order to play that song, I'd have to put in the still gallery of the DVD. I don't think I own it.
Oh no, I've got the song. Yeah, I've got the song. But he started acting in 2006 with us, and he did such films as Karaoke Kid and House on Bonejack Hill and Film Crew and Heather and Pugly Cock Block the Apocalypse. My goodness, Ross Snyder.
Guilty as charged.
Those are some of my favorite LBP flicks too. So
Film Crew is definitely one of my favorites.
yeah, I love Film Crew.
That's up there. But Ross is also. I mean, listen, Ross. Even when we would hang out and he'd come over and he'd stay for the shoots and whatnot. Oh, here's something that I actually just found recently, Ross, and I don't know if you'll remember this, but you did those movies all that was all 2006. Then there was a break, and then you came back in 2008, and you came up for 5 days or whatever, and we shot this really. I mean, it didn't end up. Nothing happened to it, but it was called A Modern Barbarian Bounty Hunter in College. And you played the character of Crotch Johnson, college porn star.
That's right. I had a Ron Jeremy wig and mustache.
That's right.
You remember that? Yeah.
And I found some of the footage. I actually have some of the raw footage of that shoot, but nothing ever really came of it. We kind of stopped.
You didn't finish it?
We did not finish it.
Oh, okay.
We just ended up watching movies and looking around,
If I'm not mistaken, were you not a brand new dad when we shot that?
So 2007.
Okay.
That's why things sort of slowed down. My son was born. And then yes, when you were there in 2008, my son was a wee lad, wee little baby crawling around. And we were doing this dumbass fucking barbarian movie that is lost to time.
You got to put some of that footage up that you found.
Do we?
At least send it to me and Andrew. We want to see it.
It's
Right.
funny. I mean, watching
see
it
it.
over again, it was pretty funny. I was like, oh man, I wonder why we didn't finish this thing.
What was it called again? What was the title?
I do remember a moment in that film where I have a dildo coming out of my pants.
What? Yeah,
and someone is stroking me.
there's
And Chris said, this is really funny. You should put this T-shirt on during this scene. And it was an Amy Lynn Best T-shirt where she's like biting a heart, and he's like, "You'll love it." And somebody's jerking me off with a dildo out of my pants, and I told that story to Amy because we put out Severe Injuries recently, and I said, "There's a Chris Seaver movie that I did," and I told her the story. But weird.
Amazing. Yeah, actually, the sex scene that we shot for that film was pretty wild. It was a orgiastic sex scene, and that footage is lost, but I remember it because I remember some of the weird shit that we were doing during that sex scene. But then I had not seen anything of Ross for many, many years, and I started to see him at the shows again, at conventions. Started to see that he was very involved with the big VHS horror movement that was happening again, and shot on video stuff that was happening, and I was just like, oh, okay, well, shit, he's still sort of rocking and rolling with what we used to talk about back in the day, and and then he come to find out that he has he runs this company with some fellow people who I am very familiar with, and I think a lot of SOV folk out there will also be very familiar with. Controversial folk, if you will. But Ross, let's why don't we talk about your history with shot on video horror?
Okay.
Because I would assume, I mean, that's obviously, your love of that garbage led you to, low budget pictures crap.
Sure. Started for me probably like you at the video store. My local mom and pop shop, for some reason, had a very wide selection of SOV stuff, which I rented regularly. So Blood Cult, this was in the late 80s, probably 87 is when we got a VCR and I started renting, and was able to see Blood Cult and Video Violence and Death Row Diner and Redneck Zombies, and they had Attack of the Killer Refrigerator with the Hook of Woodland Heights on it, and I rented all these things. And while the story seems to be with a lot of people would rent these and be repulsed and annoyed by what they saw, I just instantly accepted it. For me, growing up watching MTV, and we watched public access, and like all of that stuff had shot on video. The commercials on cable were all shot on video, and so I just instantly accepted it. In fact, I personally was quite excited by it because it seemed, in the same way that the music that I liked, punk rock and hardcore music, was accessible, that sort of filmmaking seemed really accessible to me. Now, you yourself went out and did it. I did not, but I enjoyed the fact of saying, hey, I could do this if I wanted to. And that appealed to me. And I just liked the regional charm of them, wherever they were shot, whether it was, the Polonia brothers with their, old creaky barns in Pennsylvania, or Andreas Schnass and the fields of Germany and violent shit. I just liked that regional charm of them. And so that's initially how I got into the stuff in the 80s, I would say.
Yeah, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
First one I ever rented was in 1989, and it was Redneck Zombies.
That was an early one for me. Like you, I grew up a huge Troma fan. I mean, Troma was like, as big for me growing up as, anything. I was just totally obsessed with it. There's 4th and 5th grade pictures of me with the I made the Troma team t-shirt with like a mullet, and and from middle school I was just obsessed. And this was I'm sure you remember pre-Trauma Team Video. So there
Oh,
was
yeah.
no easy way to catalog them or even know what was there. There was no catalog yet. And so you would just have to look at boxes and see which one said, Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hers present a Trauma Team release. But Redneck Zombies was a huge one for me. And I feel like it's still kind of, dare I say, underrated. I don't know. I mean, I think because it's been so accessible, like Trauma has kept it in print and on DVD and stuff, that everyone just kind of takes it for granted. But like, as far as like backyard zombie movies go, it's like the blueprint for everything.
Absolutely.
For shot on video.
Yeah.
Yeah, when people talk about their favorite shot on video movies, it's, I know Chris is his, but as far as other people go, you really don't hear people say, but amongst us, obviously Redneck Zombies is a because we're all Trauma fans,
right.
We grew up, well, I don't know, Andrew, I don't think is a Trauma fan anymore, but growing up,
I'm not anymore.
No, we love I love the classics still.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I'm not talking about new Trauma. I'm talking about still old,
Yeah.
some 90s Trauma.
Yeah. Mm. And so, as much as I enjoyed that stuff, I think it really like blossomed for me in the early 90s. Because I kind of view, I don't know how you guys feel, but I kind of view like early 90s as like a different wave almost for shot on video, because in the 80s, people were making stuff to like get in the video store, right? So like, I'm going to make video violence. It's going to get in the video store. Or you're just making shit that like no one was supposed to see. Like Cannibal Campout was just kind of like a bunch of friends making a thing, and it wasn't really meant for distribution. And I don't really feel like any of those people knew one another. It was just like this, Donald Farmer in Tennessee and, Gary Cohen in New Jersey, and just like these random kind of things happening. And then in the 90s, the video store thing was kind of passing, and it was more about like making something innovative, making something that was a calling card to show what you could do, how entertaining you could be, whether it was comedy wise or action movie wise or whatever. So I feel like in the early 90s, you had a lot more innovative stuff. And then you had like this scene where everyone was connected and everyone was like collaborating on each other's stuff and promoting each other's stuff. And then you had all the fanzines kind of reviewing each other's stuff. And to me, I know that we have our guilty pleasures of 90s horror, like Brain Scan and those things, but like,
oh, it ain't guilty.
Yeah, there's no guilt.
Yeah.
Right. But all in all, the 90s was kind of bad in mainstream horror. I'm talking about like Addams Family on the cover of Fangoria and Jurassic.
Yeah. I just did a video, me and Casey,
our
favorite 90s horror movies.
Yeah.
I just put it up there. And the majority of it is all direct to VHS, But for me.
Or what I was feeling was like not in America. So like, Della Morte Delamore, Dead Alive, Man Bites Dog, Funny Games, all these interesting genre things happening in other countries. But here it's just like Stephen King adaptations and Leprechaun sequels. And so I stopped with Fangoria and started with alternative cinema and film threat and Draculina and independent video. And that's when, my head just exploded. And it was around the same time I started going to conventions, and all of that stuff was right there, and you could interact. You could go up and meet Eric Stanzi and talk to him. I couldn't do that with Wes Craven and the directors that I liked in the 80s. So that was really what lit my fire, and is kind of the sweet spot that we focus on in Saturn School.
Do you have certain filmmakers from that time period that really sort of stuck out to you? That like, I guess you would consider, because like most people are going to say for shot on video, if you're a fan of shot on video, you go to the pioneers like, you know, your fucking Polonias and the Donald Farmers and John McBride and all of that stuff. Um, but like you said, there was a new wave coming in the '90s, and a whole bunch more people just kind of smashed into those guys,
Yeah.
you know. Um, and to some degree, like I was one of those kids who got influenced by that early stuff that I was seeing, and then weaseling my way into all of the people in the '90s who were doing it and
Yeah.
making friends with those people. Um, but I certainly can name a few who really like, you know, uh, whew, tickled that nub there for a minute. But so who do you think crawls up your butthole and gives you
Well,
that
I just movie wise and filmmaker wise for the '90s was this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This changed everything for me. When I
You-
saw this, it was just my jaw hit the floor. I couldn't believe, you know, the morphing effects and the steady cam and the crane shots, and I was just floored. And so, I mean, I like everything he's done pretty much, JR. But Ozone to me is like the gold standard of everything. So,
yeah, that
and
was
this
my
was just such a great year, '94, because it's like I watched this, and then like a month later, I watched this,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's another one in my collection. Yeah.
and then like a month later, I watched this,
woo.
and it was just like, I know super like unknown, but like '94, this No Resistance, which we put out on Blu-ray, but like just a total like cyberpunk shot on the streets of Houston, like super guerrilla. Like this was amazingly innovative for '94, and those were all like the same year for me. And I think like Garotica was that year, and I mean that year is nuts. Like, and I was just sending money orders away to get this stuff. I was seeing the ads, and you'd send a money order away, and but
I was getting a lot of that stuff free because I was sending all my movies to these companies,
right.
and in return they would send a letter back, but they would send some of their films.
Yeah.
So that's how I saw a lot of those films, and fucking flipped out for them as well. Yeah. So JR, I mean JR really.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah. Eric Stanzi, like I said, Scooter McRae. I would be remiss if I didn't, mention Wave, because that was going on simultaneously, and that's something that also happened through that video store that I was talking about. So while that is not, monumental in the span of things, it's certainly very particular to me. So
yeah, we definitely. So we had the shot on video stuff, but you better believe we weren't carrying Wave. Not in Wellsville, New York.
we got in that store Psycho Sisters, the original SOV.
Yeah.
And I rented it because I had seen, they did the premiere at the college, which is right down the street from me here. And so there were like flyers up locally for like, local shot horror movie. So it was like on my radar, and then it was in my video store. So I rented it, and I thought it was fun for a regionally made, where you notice the locations and stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, it was a regional curiosity that I enjoyed watching. And then like 2 months later, they got Wave's Most Gruesome Deaths. And this video store had like a Faces of Death section where all like the real death movies, and they put it there. So they didn't know what it was. They thought it was like a real death tape. And so I'm like checking it out, and I turn it over, and it's just like Pamela Sutch and Tina Krause and like all the girls from Psycho Sisters. And I'm like, I don't know what this is, but I'm gonna rent it and try to find out. And so I rented it and I took it home and I watched it, and I still didn't really know what I was watching because they weren't trailers. They would just say like a name, Dead in the Pool. And then it would just be Gary like drowning some girl, no color, one scene of death. And then the next one, Virgin Sacrifices. And he's, wrestling Tina in the mud or something. And I was like, I don't know what this is. It's not porn. It's not, what is this? And then it's like, send away for a catalog. $1 P.O. box. So I did that. And that's how I found out about Wave and their custom movies and stuff. So, I mean, that was more to me because it was a Jersey thing. And then they were at Chiller. And so it was just a very strange thing that I always thought everybody knew about. But, come to find out that, outside of the tri-state area, no one really did.
Yeah. Great documentary, too, by the way.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, you guys made a kick-ass documentary.
Yeah, I didn't find out about Wave until I was like 25 or so. I had no idea they existed.
Yeah, no clue. I mean, obviously that wasn't coming to Indiana when I grew up. So
yeah. It's just one of those things locally that you take for granted. In the convention, it's like, oh, there's Wave, and they have their murder photographs and their photo album that you can buy, and and then one day we were just sort of sitting and talking about it, and we're like, man, that was such a weird thing. Like, I wonder if people know about that. Turns out that no one really did.
Yeah.
All right. So from a fan to sort of getting involved with, letting the world know about this stuff. How did that come about? How did you get hooked up with the partners that you're hooked up with and start your whole film company journey?
Well, as you mentioned, I ran into you at some, they started to have VHS only conventions, like the Severed convention and stuff. And I've always been a VHS collector, even when, I buy DVDs and Blu-rays and 4Ks and every form of physical media, but my tapes, especially the SOV ones, I just kept because I just had a feeling that so much of this stuff was never going to see the light of day. So, I was always on the lookout for tapes. And then some of my friends, like Josh from Lunch Meat and stuff, were putting out their own tapes. Matt from Horror Boobs and a bunch of my friends. And I was like, maybe I could do this with just really obscure SOV things that I like, that maybe either A, no one can get a hold of, or B, would have to pay $500 to get a copy of. So I was just licensing tape rights and doing like these little 30-piece runs and selling them at conventions and stuff. And that was basically what Saturn Score was. It started in like 2015. And at some point, through that, I'd always been a fan of Bill Hellfire and Factory 2000. There were also local Jersey SOV team, sort of, that was making movies. And I was always a fan. And then I came to find out that he had moved to the town that I grew up in. So we were like super close to one another. And we just started hanging out and watching movies together. And because he had history with Wave, I started asking him a lot of questions about Wave and Gary. And then we started watching Wave movies together like every week, just to kind of, get off on the weird atmosphere of it. And I, at the time, wanted to write a Wave book about the history of Wave. And it was Bill that kind of convinced me, like, no, we should make a documentary of this. Like, it could be good. And so we conference called Gary, and he gave us his blessing, and he gave us the rights to the entire usage of the 400+ movie catalog.
Nice.
And we just did it. We shot it first, and then we crowdfunded it, try to get completion funds. and it went really like way beyond what we thought it was going to do. And so then we broadened the scope of it. That's when we interviewed Hugh Gallagher and JR, and we kind of went outside of the Wave universe to get more perspective. And the goal was just to finish it and like play it at festivals, and we finished it right before COVID. And then COVID came, and we had this finished movie that we couldn't do anything with. But what we did do is send it to distributors, and we got like a really positive response, and ended up with Vinegar Syndrome and OCN. And it was through them. And, while we were negotiating Mail Order Murder with them, that they're like, hey, we're starting this partner label thing. Would you want to make Saturn's Core a Blu-ray label? Yes or no? So I said yes. And we, they're a film-centric company. So their, main thing is doing film preservation and film scans. And this was not really their wheelhouse. And so we kind of had to figure it out on our own a little bit, but it was a great opportunity for me to all of these filmmakers that I've been dealing with as a fan for years and years and years to go to and say, hey, we have this cool opportunity to put this stuff out on Blu-ray. And, what's cool about it is that the majority of the people that are buying these, they don't know what this stuff is.
Yeah.
They didn't grow up watching Savage Harvest.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, Chris, you would know that in the 90s, there was a stigma behind that stuff. It was like, this is not shot on film. It's garbage. It's like a soap opera. We don't want to look at it.
Yeah.
But the younger kids today, like everything they watch, the Marvel movies they watch are shot on video. So I feel like what it's shot on is less of a stigma now. And it's just like, is this a cool movie or not? Or is this a crazy movie or not? So people are buying these things and checking them out, which is great for the filmmakers. They may watch Red Lips and be like, this is rad. I want to see every Donald Farmer movie I can get my hands on. Or they may look at Red Lips and go, I'm not doing that again. But I try to, if the filmmakers own all their movies, I try to say, put all your trailers on the disc.
Yeah.
Whole trailer vault. And then the people that dig it can go through, and they're going to hit your website. And so it's just a cool opportunity to, kind of get the word out and shine the spotlight on the filmmakers that I love and grew up loving.
Yeah, and what I like about what you do is you release deeper cuts of SOV, stuff that isn't, I guess, mainstream SOV, like Polonia Brothers and stuff like that. You're releasing some of the stuff that's a little more, had shorter runs, I guess, or more regional than most SOV. So like you do some really cool stuff with stuff that people into SOV may have not even heard of, like you've released some stuff that I was like, man, I've never even heard of this one before. Like, I got to check this out. This looks cool. So I really appreciate like that you guys do stuff like that,
Thank you. I'm primarily, I brought Hellfire in as my partner, so we're partners in it, but I'm primarily curating it, and I am just putting out movies that I like.
Yeah.
Like, I don't care about pieces of product or like filling a release schedule. Like, I don't care. I just want to put out movies that I like. And so anything that comes out on the label is a movie that I'm probably either a longtime fan of or just something I'm super stoked on. There have been a few exceptions of things that I have this weird like memory where like I flipped through a film threat in 1995 and I saw a little ad for some weird thing, and I still think about it all the time.
Uh-huh.
Whatever happened to that movie Bobo with the killer doll like that I saw in Independent Video 5?
I have that. I bought that from you on VHS. I have the Bobo VHS, which
I've thought about Bobo for like 25 years. Like when I had that magazine, like I was probably a teenager,
Yeah.
So I didn't have disposable income to send for every tape that was
Right.
advertised in the magazine. I had to pick and choose. So something like that, if you didn't order it, you don't have it,
Yeah.
So all I can do is go on Facebook and like, all right, this was made in Illinois. Let me find a Chuck Gotsky in Illinois. And I find some guy and like, did you make Bobo? And then it's like, why?
Yeah.
And I have to explain to him, well, I saw this little ad in the independent video 20 years ago. And so there's been a few of those of things that I've just been dreaming about that I ended up, Bobo was one. The Tortured Soul trilogy was another. And probably most recently was The Adventures of Sergeant Lunch, which had an ad and an article in one issue of independent video. And I've just thought about it. And, eventually just tracked the filmmakers down, and luckily there were masters to work with. So there's a few discoveries, but everything else is just like, some of them are ones we did on tape. Like I did Burglar from Hell on tape, and Savage Harvest and Psycho Sisters. And so it was just a matter of circling back and saying, hey, let's do this again, but like, super explosive edition to revisit. So.
I also have this very weird movie you put out that was shot in Tallahassee. I used to live in Tallahassee. It was like Florida Sink, the creature from the Florida Sink or something. Yeah, it was once again, you made like 10 copies of it or whatever. It's like, I got to have this. You remember what that one was called? I can't remember the name.
Blood Summer and sometimes Cherokee Sink.
Yeah.
Yeah, Blood Summer was a slasher shot in a trailer park.
Yeah.
In Tallahassee.
Yeah.
The masters are gone for all of that filmmakers' movies. And so there'll be no revisiting those on Blu-ray, unfortunately. Yeah. People ask me all the time, but the tape is it.
I got it.
But, Chris, I was thinking back and how I discovered your stuff. And I'm pretty sure I was at a chiller, and somebody came up and handed me a fanzine that was called Golf Shirt. And inside Golf Shirt was an article and a full-page ad for this.
Oh, wow.
Nova Zombie. And so that's how I first heard about you. And then obviously, I think this was probably next, Scrotal Vengeance.
Yeah.
But for me, anyway. And then as they were featured on the DVDs of those JR movies that came out, and that's how I discovered your stuff.
Oh, Golf Shirt. I have no fucking idea what that.
The only thing I could think is the girl that played Mulva.
Oh, fuck! You're right.
The more I'm thinking about it, I'm thinking that maybe it was her that handed me the fanzine.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah. Wow. I guess. Yeah. I guess her band that she had. That band would make zines.
Yeah. I definitely have that Golf Shirt zine in a box here somewhere.
Wow, that's cool.
I would have to dig through the archive for that one. But
wow, yeah. I never saw it, because I would assume by that time, my relationship with that group of people was over.
Yeah. This would have been pretty fresh after Mulva, I think.
I mean, we shot Mulva in 2000. I mean, I was out of there like 3 months later. Like it was, I edited the movie back in fucking Wellsville.
Yeah. But it, the Debbie Rashawn and the Trent Haga is what, being a Troma fan, what put it on my radar, and so from there it was in my brain. And
cool.
So
cool. Yeah. That's sweet. So so who started the VHS Fest?
VHS Fest was started by Josh Schaefer from Lunch Meat.
Okay.
And year one, I did not even go because we were shooting Mail Order Murder. during the summer. So I was on the road shooting, and I didn't even get to attend it. But I believe maybe starting year 2, he asked me to come aboard very graciously. And so we have been running that annually, and it just gets bigger and bigger every year. Last year was the first year that it straight sold out before the event. I mean, we had some like day of sellouts, but last year was the first year that it straight sold out before we even got there, which is nuts. But yeah, it's like the Woodstock for VHS collectors.
Yeah.
It's really incredible. All day, tape trading, hundreds of vendors, mostly all VHS. We kind of vet it so that it's not, Freddy Krueger coasters and arts and crafts and stuff. We try to get the good tape heads in there, and so there's lots of cool stuff going on. And then at night we physically stream VHS tapes up on the giant screen, and I try to with Josh's approval, of course, slip as many weird SOV things in there as I possibly can. So we've shown some pretty bizarre movies, from Burglar to Hell to Savage Harvest, and
that Savage Harvest. So, that Blu-ray that you guys put out is phenomenal, and it's. I mean, it's a lot of it because I adore that film.
Same.
And the fact that you guys put that extra on the Blu-ray when Eric was there, and to see, I always get excited when the filmmakers realize just how loved their movie is. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And it's funny you say that, because that's happened at VHS Fest several times. And because before Eric, we had JR there, we had Pete Jackalone there, we showed Psycho Sisters, we had Mark Polonia there. We've had a lot of filmmakers there, and no one ever documents it. And so I always tell these guys, like, yeah, you've done screenings, but this is like once in a lifetime. Like, this is not going to be like anything else you've ever done. And so when Eric agreed to come, I was like, we got the Blu-ray coming. You've got to shoot it. Like, bring a crew with you. And, he was always sort of notorious for his documenting his films and the making ofs and things from On Thin Ice and all of that. So actually the guy that shot On Thin Ice, Jason Christ, is the one that came out with Eric and shot that whole thing. And it just happened to be probably more dramatic than we imagined, because it monsooned on Friday and was nightmarish. And then on Saturday, when Savage Harvest played, like, the heavens opened up and it was gorgeous, and it was sold out.
Yeah.
We had to like turn people away, and it was nuts. So that was a cool moment, and we got to document it for the Blu-ray, which was awesome.
Yeah, it warmed my heart to see it.
Cool. And he's a super sweet guy too. I mean, he's and one of the few really that has just soldiered on. Like, every couple of years, there's an Eric Stanze movie. Like, the style has changed. He went into more extreme horror and more thought-provoking and psychological horror. But I love his stuff. I mean, if you'll accept the turn into scrapbook, like, you're good from there.
That's not me, but I love I love Eric, and I'll always love him for that movie, for Savage Harvest.
Yeah. And the ones before, the Scare Game and the Fine Art.
Yeah, I talk about Scare Game last episode because my pick was Savage Harvest.
It's not easy to see at this point.
No, so like yeah, when I sent my stuff to Salt City Home Video at the time, Ron's company, it was 94,
Okay.
and I still have the letter that he sent back, but he sent back Scare Game and Savage Harvest on VHS.
Sweet.
Um, and I talked about this last episode too, but man, once DVD came out, I stupidly got rid of every VHS I ever had.
Yeah.
And I wish I still had that shit. Yes, that's right. The Scare Game.
Oof.
The guy on the cover has a bit of a Zadar going on.
Well, that is DJ Vivona.
That's Vivona.
Yeah. And I mean, this was basically remade into Ice from the Sun. So
Savage hit that sweet spot though, because one of the things I loved about that VHS was it had the making of, after the movie.
yeah,
And as somebody who is making movies in their hometown, seeing that, not that I hadn't seen making of shit before, but that one really hit home. Seeing him with the over the shoulder camera connected to the VCR, running around, shooting the way he was shooting, I was just like, man,
and like a super serious crew, crew, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they meant business. Whether or not it showed, I think that's why he had issue with Savage Harvest for so long, is that they took it so damn seriously, and I love it, but there is some goofiness to it as shot on video movies. And I don't think he was ready to embrace that now, but I think he's kind of come around. So.
100%. Well, what are you doing? What are your favorite releases that you've put out?
I mean, Shattered Dead was a big one to do. Seems like people really like that. Seemed to be one of the favorites that we did. The Charles Pinion stuff, We Await and Red Spirit Lake. Been a fan of those forever, and Charles Pinion has such an interesting voice, compared to what was going on at the time. But it's hard for me to pick because, like I said, everything we put out are like, they're like all my jams. You know what I mean? They're the ones I've been shouting at the sky about, No Resistance and The Good Book and like all these movies that I've been shouting about for years that people are like, okay, dude, I finally get the chance to get them out there. And yeah, I mean, we're putting fucking wave movies on Blu-ray. Which I think is nuts, and we're just, keeping on. I think that we're probably the only label that is 100% solely focused to only SOV. We don't do film restoration, none of that. It's just SOV with a certain cutoff. I was beholden to the 90s for a while, and then I started to realize, like, I saw some cool stuff in the early 2000s as well. So that's when we did like Red Cockroaches, which was a pretty interesting one from the early 2000s, and I think we've gone as far as like 05, but I'm trying to like kind of cap it there, because once you get into the digital and everything, it's just like, not that they're not cool, but it's a little less special. You know what I mean? Like, kind of everyone was kind of doing it, and then you're getting out of the VHS era also. So, but yeah, those that I mentioned, No Resistance, that Tortured Soul set was a mammoth thing to do, 3 movies and like 9 hours of special features and stuff. So,
oh crap.
But yeah, we just keeping on. The first of the month, vinegarsyndrome.com. We always have a release. We put one out today. So
yeah, I saw that you guys put something out today. I want to check out the that No Resistance that you were talking about. I haven't seen that one.
Yeah, I haven't either. I definitely wrote it down to
Yeah,
check it out.
I just checked it on my Vinegar Syndrome
Yeah.
want list.
Yeah, a couple of. I mean, horror always sells the best. It's our bread and butter. Obviously, people want the horror, the slasher, the zombie. But I'm also trying to do, you know, that was the common denominator, right? But
Yeah.
I'm always looking for sci-fi and cyberpunk, and you know, we're gonna try some comedies.
Well, you guys put out a movie that I absolutely love called Lost Faith, which is just wacky. I'm friends with Joel Wynkoop, and that movie it's so fun. This crazy action movie that he shot here in Florida. So yeah, I mean, anything. Sometimes finding the stuff that's not horror is you find these like little nuggets. Like I was telling these guys about Venus Flytrap,
Oh
which
yeah,
is a great SOV, but it's not horror, but it's really good.
Yeah. So
but yeah.
I'm always looking for stuff like that. The one we put out today is called Ultra Megalopolis, and it's this filmmaker Larry Wessel, who was operating at the same time as JR and all those guys in the 90s, but he was making camcorder documentaries, sort of cinema verite, you know, in the style of Frederick Wiseman, but like with $0 for the camcorder. And so if you go back and go through your Film Threats and your alternative cinemas, all the Wessel movies are in there reviewed. And I've been following him since the 90s. I think his stuff is super interesting. You know, he's tackled tons of interesting subjects over the years, from Tijuana bullfights to Robert Williams, the artist, and true crime stuff. And so I've been wanting to do a Larry movie for a while. So Ultra Megalopolis was all shot in it's basically about LA post the riots, and he just goes around and like films weird street performers, and it's like 2.5 hours of just LA weirdness. He goes into wrestling federations and you know, spray painters, graffiti artists, and all kinds of Charles Manson's cellmate he interviews, and all kinds of weird, strange people. So, but it's totally analog SOV shot. So
Cool.
I'm interested in this Age of Demons.
Yeah, I looked up the catalog today because I was just kind of refreshing, and I saw that one. I want to know more about that. All
right. Yeah, I mean, I think Chris, you would definitely like this. Damon Foster, he made a movie before Age of Demons called Hot Dogs on the Run. And he used these tapes are like super glued together. They're amazing. Just the aesthetic of the tape is, I put all my shit in protectors, which is why it's shiny. But and this was just a kung fu movie, basically, like a chopsaki. Damon used to make that magazine. Excuse my un-PC statement here, but it was called Oriental Cinema. It was a legit magazine that focused on, you know, Hong Kong cinema and stuff, but it had that name, unfortunately. Yeah. But he's an interesting cat. He is a devout Satanist, and but also a kung fu artist, and a punk rocker, and he. So after Hot Dogs on the Run, he made this movie called Age of Demons, which was covered in a lot of fanzines back in the day, and it's got, you know, kung fu, but, you know, sort of that Mighty Morphin Power Rangers-esque, Ultraman suits, robots. He does all kinds of video toaster effects and like drawing into the frame with like Microsoft Paint and like just wild stuff. But it also, that one in particular has a horror element too. So there's a demon monster and these sorceresses, and there's nudity, and like, it's just a weird fucking movie. And it's just one I've always liked. And I'm like, I feel like people that go in blind may dig this because it's just so bizarre. So
Gotta check that out.
It's on
Yeah.
my radar.
Yeah.
So,
I think that might be a next movie night get together, Chris.
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
right.
And again, had an amazing tape with like a glued together cover. And all of these, you know, when you buy the Blu-ray, obviously we put the slip cover on the outside, but usually if you flip the insert over, you know, I'll scan my original VHS and have the VHS sleeve if you want to display it that way. So.
Yeah, sweet. Anything you can talk about for the future, or is everything sort of tight-lipped?
Yeah, that's a little tough because.
Is there like a title that you wish you could have fucking gotten and somebody else snatched, or
of course.
you know?
I mean, there are ones that when we do our recommendations, there's one I'm going to talk about that I would love to do. Here's one. Here's one of my favorites of all time. See if anybody backs me on this. The Bride of Frank.
I've never seen Bride of Frank.
I haven't seen Bride.
Oh, you guys haven't?
No.
Come on.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Bride of Frank.
All right.
I'm adding it to my list to watch, though.
I mean, just like, you want to talk about a midnight movie? You're talking about a movie. You know, it's so rare that. Well, I compare it somewhat to this. Like Splatter Farm in the 80s, it's like you put it in and it's like, all right, this is like a cool little regional thing. And then all of a sudden, like, people got their dicks out and there's like anal fisting going on, and you're just like, what's happening? What am I looking at? You know?
Yeah.
And you see something and then you go, wow, that's fucked up. It's certainly not going to go any further than that. And then like 10 minutes later, it goes even farther than that. And I love stuff like that.
Yeah, Bride of Frank is a real fucking like just a grimy fucking movie.
Yeah, I would say probably Pink Flamingos-esque, but almost where it seems like it's a documentary at times. I almost feel like it's real people, because I feel like the people are playing amalgamations of themselves. Like it all takes place at like this trucking warehouse, and those guys totally work at a trucking warehouse together. Like, you know what I mean? And they're kind of like playing their job politics and everything. But like something will happen on screen that is just unreal. Like he tells the guy, I'm gonna rip off your head and shit down your neck. And then he literally rips off the guy's head, and like this old man pulls his pants down and like drops a deuce into the guy's neck, like using real bad video toaster effects. And you're like, wow, that's something I've never seen before. It's certainly not going to get any crazier than that. And it just keeps going and going and going until you just can't fucking believe what you're looking at anymore. And the filmmaker shot it under an alias. He called himself Escalpo Don Balde and claimed that he was a South American snuff filmmaker. But he is actually a New Jersey man named Steve Ballett, who is one of the actors in the films and in the movie. And he sadly passed away very young, not too far after the movie was made. The movie is owned outright by Sub Rosa. Apparently it was given to them by the family, and nobody's seen it for decades. They had a DVD, which I'm sure is way out of print by now, but Steve had a lot of mutual friends in the scene. Everyone's got a Steve Ballett story, from Scooter to Hellfire to everyone that went to Chiller. Everyone has a Steve Ballett story, and everyone's like, we would love to like make a cool featurette where everyone tells their Steve stories, but we don't have it. I hope that it comes out, because it's amazing, and it doesn't really have the fan base that it deserves, I think. That's not my pick, though, but that's just that's one I wish we had. I feel like it's like such a Saturn's core title that it's crying out.
Sweet. Yeah. No.
I get it. Yeah. I showed it to my girlfriend at some point, and she was so appalled. And at the time, when we were first dating, I was working in a bookstore, but with a movie section, and they had an employee pick section. I had The Bride of Frank.
Yeah.
She came to visit me, and she was like, "Oh my God, take that down! Like, people are going to think you're a weirdo."
Yeah.
I am a weirdo. There's
Yeah.
no denying that.
All right, well let's go into the flicks that we want to recommend to folks. You know, let's show off some of the stuff we love and see if you guys out there can find it, or if you want to give it a chance. Let's do it. Let's start with our guest.
Oh no, I've been talking forever. You guys go.
Okay, Andrew.
Okay.
Andrew, let's talk about your pick.
All right. My pick is a Visual Vengeance release. It was Slaughter Day.
Slaughter Day.
Yeah. Which you and I watched. I actually watched it before, and then I brought it and we watched it. If you like Evil Dead, but you don't want to have a lot of money spent on effects, this is pretty much it. It's brothers with a construction company, and they have a shitty employee that is into the Necronomicon. He reads from it, and he becomes possessed and murders everyone. And it hits that sweet spot of just under an hour, I think. Can't remember exactly how short it was, but I think it was 58 minutes, which was just the amount of time it needed. There's not much story. There's not much plot.
I didn't know a lick. It didn't make a lick of sense to me.
It didn't have to. It's just like over the top, ridiculous, low budget gore. And I don't know. Was this a lost movie? Was that the?
Well, I could tell you a little bit of a story about that.
Okay.
So Ron Bonk did a tape of that on Sub Rosa back in the 90s.
Okay.
If you went to conventions and perused the Ron Bonk table, there were probably hundreds of obscure things with, like, colored photocopied covers that if you didn't buy it that day, there and then, there's probably 5 in the world. And I happened to be buddies with Matt Desiderio, who is, one of the curators for Visual Vengeance. And he has been talking about Slaughter Day for like 15 years, like as long as I've known him, because he has the Sub Rosa tape. And nobody, he always brings it up, Slaughter Day. Nobody knows. So we're so happy that he, got the chance to get it out there, and now everyone can see it. But I had not seen it until the Blu-ray came out.
Yeah.
But there is a tape, but probably like 5 humans in the world.
Yeah. So a very, very limited run, kind of. If you want to call it a run. Yeah.
Right. They did have a follow-up called Loose Cannons.
Yeah, I haven't seen that. So, what do you got, Chris? You got the trailer?
I'm going to play the trailer. And what I will say about this movie is the Evil Dead stuff really comes from the ingenuity with the camcorder.
Mm-hmm.
They're flipping that thing around like Raimi flips a 16 millimeter. Like they're doing a lot of shit with it, Evil Dead style shit with it, and it's really cool. It's really cool to see. But like I said, the story there is none.
There's not, But
let's play that.
So where are we working today anyway? Old abandoned cabin needs a lot of work done to it. Did you see Jones disappear like that, man?
Freeze, stupid Andy!
Dang!
You will die by the wrath of the Necronomicon. Don't let me go!
beer, no babes. We're hurting now.
Stay happy, man.
Oh, I have no attitude problem.
This guy's not kill the
Let's get out of here.
I love in Slaughter Day, every time the camera turns on, they go.
Yeah, that reminded
Every
me of
shot, go.
early Warlock stuff. So I had a great appreciation for it. But yeah, that's my pick of go seek this one out. It's fun, short, brief, gory, fun.
All right, and you can find that online. You can find it on Amazon.
Oh yeah, easy to pick up.
All right, Clint.
So my pick is the 1986 slasher film, SOV slasher film, Night Ripper. Jeff Hathcock directed this. I'm a sucker for slasher movies. I've been a slasher movie fan my entire life. It's my favorite genre of horror movies. This one's got like a film noir kind of like undercurrent to it. It's got some cool effects in it. It's not overly gory, but it's got some cool scenes in it. It's got an interesting twist ending, which I kind of like. I kind of like the ending to it. It's got a cool soundtrack. It's got the suit Nazi from Seinfeld is actually in it. It's good. It's shot really well. I love SOVs that are like you can tell that the people behind them are like want to take it seriously. Like I've always kind of liked that look in an SOV. So yeah, it's just one that I've always liked, and I'm glad that Culture Shock put it out on Blu-ray.
All right, let's take a look.
What are you looking at? The most fascinating girl I've ever met. But she's got a boyfriend. Police think they may have the Ripper. And you'll never guess who it is.
You photograph a lot of naked women?
It's part of the business. But that's all it is.
At least the photographer kept his hands to himself.
You're not going to hold that against me forever, are you?
Well, I'm goddamn tired of playing the other woman.
Whoever killed her knew where she was and waited for her to come out.
You really ought to keep your bedroom drapes closed. You never know who may be watching.
I find it stimulating myself. Whoops! This isn't love. This is two sweaty bunnies fucking under a flat lamp.
It's almost certain killers had training in surgery.
You're even prettier than I thought you'd be.
You don't have to spend Saturday night all alone.
We're just having an argument.
You all right?
I think you just saved my life.
You've got a marvelous face. I'd like to do some things with it.
Dream about me.
Clint, have you seen Fatal Images?
Oh yes, Fatal Images is
Very similar.
amazing. Yeah.
How is the Blu-ray of Night Ripper, Clint? Does it have a lot
Good.
of
It's
features?
actually, I think it's from the tape. It's an up-res from the original master. So the
Yeah, I
Blu-ray-
mean that looked pretty fucking decent.
Yeah, it looks good. Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, the version I saw was definitely really beat up.
No, this is I highly recommend this Blu-ray, and the Blu-ray has interviews with Larry Thomas, the guy that played the suit Nazi, with the director Jeff Hathcock. It's got. I think it's even got like added gore scenes and stuff.
Well, I mean, Hathcock was an interesting one because he made Victims, which was a film.
Yeah.
And then Night Ripper and Streets of Death.
Yeah.
And then went back to film and made what was retitled "Fertilize the Blaspheming Bombshell" by Troma.
Yeah.
So he kind of dabbled in and out in the same way that Donald Farmer and some of the others did. But I would imagine that Night Ripper is probably Betacam or something more.
Yeah. And I like his SOVs more than I like his films.
Same.
Like Victims is kind of garbage, but
same.
But Streets of Vengeance, right?
Streets of Death.
Streets of Death, right? Yeah.
Super solid.
And Night Ripper are both solid.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm going to talk about Redneck Zombies. We're very cliche if you're a SOV fan, but for folks out there who are just seeing this stuff for the first time or really just want to get into it, we did talk about it a little bit, but it's the first SOV that I saw that I rented back in Wellsville, New York, all those years ago. You can look at that, and the Blu-ray is fucking amazing. It's stacked. It's really cool. It's very funny. It's a comedy horror. But it's the it's the movie that I say, like, I rented Bad Taste, Toxic Avenger in 1989, and that sort of changed the sort of. It was exactly what I wanted to do making films. You know what I mean? Like, it mixed the stuff that I love to a degree that I had never seen before in horror movies. And I, like I say, I love Evil Dead 2. I love Night of the Creeps. I love the stuff that has the comedy and whatnot, but this was different. This Bad Taste and Toxic Avenger were wholly different. This was like goofy, dumbass, absurd, weird shit. This was absurdist Monty Python style stupidity with my horror, and that's the stuff that I flipped out for, and I was like, this is what I want to do. And then I rent Redneck Zombies, and I'm like, holy shit, this is exactly what I want to do. This type of backyard, nothing, no budget, anything, but you're mixing the horror and you're mixing the stupid and the weird characters. So it had such a tremendous effect on me. And I'll always sort of praise it and go back to it. And so if you haven't seen this movie, if you want to give SOV a shot, and if you can stand dumb, humor.
I don't think I would have found this channel, Chris.
I know.
That wasn't a requirement.
Redneck Zombies is for you, really.
But like legit funny and like endlessly quotable.
Yeah, 100%.
Super like in joke. Like you can watch it and there's sort of things hidden in there for you. So
and great characters and really awesome effects, and it's just wonderful. And I'll never stop praising it. So let's take a look at Redneck Zombies.
Lost the barrel. You know what's in that barrel?
Do not open till Christmas. Hope I don't go blind.
Got a new recipe, and it's green. You better get your ass back out there and get me that barrel.
What we have here is a failure to communicate.
Fritz! I think we're on our own.
No! It's a native! Oh, hello! Are you out of your mind?
Incredible.
I got to pick up that new Blu-ray.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal, and the extras are awesome. They did such a good job with this thing. Like, you know, it's right up there. Like, uh, with what you guys did with Savage Harvest, as far as Blu-ray is concerned, what they did with Redneck Zombies, what JR does with all of his fucking releases, like, I just love the people who take the time and the effort to really, they give a shit with this stuff, and they're presenting it in the best way that they can, and giving us like a ton of extras to boot, like, and that's the sweet stuff for me. So, yeah, man.
And that's totally the upside of putting these things on Blu-ray in the first place. Is, you're not using up that disc with a 4K transfer. So you have an opportunity to put so much material on there, from their short films to, whatever they were working on at the time, and, kind of make it a snapshot of that era of, the filmmaker's life, really.
Awesome. All right, Ross.
All right, I'm going to go. You're not going to be able to play a trailer for this.
Okay.
But I decided to pick one that is not on Saturn's core. And I decided to pick one that is super, super slept on. And that is Original Sins from 1995. Anyone? So this came out on Something Weird video.
Okay.
There was a very small period of time where Something Weird did this line. It was called Frank Henenlotter's Sexy Shockers from the Video Underground. And they released 5 tapes. Shattered Dead was one. We Await in Red Spirit Lake. The Jeffrey Arsenault movie Night Owl, which is actually shot on film. And then Original Sins. So this is the only American release. Never had a DVD. Has never been on Blu-ray. Has never been released in any other form. It was released on PAL video as well. But this fucking movie is so crazy. It was shot in New York, and it was basically a group of film students that went to SUNY Purchase together. And it was the same group of people that made Shattered Dead. So it was directed by Matt Howe and Howard Berger. And Matt Howe was the videographer on Shattered Dead. And Howard Berger is he does lots of commentaries. He's like a film expert. He does tons of Kino Lorber commentaries and stuff. And they made this movie together. It has a lot of the cast from Shattered Dead. And it has Scooter McCrae in it as Satan. And it's basically a group of Catholic schoolgirls that believe that Jesus returned to Earth and is having sex with them to try to impregnate them with the second coming of God. And it turns out that it's just an alien that has come down that looks like God, that's fucking these girls just to kind of, see what Earth women are like, basically. And so that's one plot, but it also has like this death metal band that's trying to get a record contract by raising Satan. So they end up taking one of the corpses of these, these girls are fucking guys and killing them, as sacrifices to this god. And, they're all wearing like burlap sacks, and they've renounced all earthly possessions. And this death metal band takes one of the virginal corpses and rapes it in order to bring Satan, and that's Scooter McCrae in like a devil thing with a tail. And it goes all kinds of crazy places. It's one of those movies where it just keeps outdoing the craziness over and over and over. Super gory, super blasphemous, super subversive, but also funny. It's got a lot of humor in it. And if you like Shattered Dead, it's got a ton of the cast. John Wiener, some of the girls were in Shattered Dead and reappear in this. and it's totally a gem. It's screened in New York City by me at the Spectacle. They did Original Sins one night and Shatter Dead another night, and Matt Howe was there. I think that's the only like public fanfare that it's ever had. And it's got an IMDb and it's got a letterbox, but I don't know how you can see it. I've heard that one of the other companies has the rights, so hopefully, eventually, we'll see a Blu-ray of it from someone. But that's my pick: Original Sins, 1995, Matt Howe and Howard Berger.
Awesome.
Great. Well, you sold it. I want to see it. That's a shame. I can't see it.
Yeah. I think it
sounds like someone might release it in the near future. So,
well, let's hope so.
Yeah. Awesome.
All right. We did it.
Hooray!
Another episode in the books.
Our first guest.
Yeah.
It's an honor.
Okay. So let's, Ross. Where can people find your wonderful SOV films that you lovingly curate and remaster and put out for folks?
If you want to purchase, we are at www.vinegarsyndrome.com. We are one of the partner labels, so you just got to toggle to the side and all the cool partner labels come up. And obviously you can access Saturn's Core from there. We are on Instagram at Saturn's Core Audio Video. We're always posting stuff there and all the different events we do. And we still do VHS. We do a couple VHS only releases each year. And we're on Facebook, Saturn's Core Audio and Video. So you can find us there as well.
All right. Well, sweet. Guys, Todd Cook was supposed to join us tonight. But he will be joining us next week. But it was awesome to talk to Ross. Awesome to learn more about Saturn's Core and the wonderful films he puts out. And it's just awesome to talk to Ross. I haven't talked to you in many, many moons. So it's great to geek out. And it's just awesome to know that there's more SOV warriors out there. SOV vigilantes, if you will, who are out on the streets praising the word of SOV. So thank you, Ross. Thank you for all the magical work that you do to bring awareness to these amazing films and these filmmakers.
My pleasure.
Guys, anything else? Do you guys want to say anything?
Stay vigilant.
Yes, of course.
Blork, 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 blork.